Painting with Acrylics with Kim Brandon Watson. Artistic expression is a powerful way to cultivate creativity and tell our personal story. Creating art enables us to share our culture and our identity. During these unexpected times, when we are all staying home, trying to be healthy and safe, the Council of Aging Southern California is here to provide a comfortable outlet for you to express yourself creatively in the form of art. We believe that art has a significant therapeutic value. It can help us cope with the isolation and social distancing that we are all currently experiencing, as well as help us reduce the stress and anxiety associated with this temporary isolation. Furthermore, this creative process can help us stay busy and motivated throughout the day. Good morning, and thank you for joining me today. Today we are going to work on a landscape. So get your materials ready and let's start. Okay, so what we're going to do today is create a landscape, and I'm going to simplify this a bit using, again, the primary colors that we've been using and mixing them. So I've already drawn out my layout here, and we are going to start. Okay, when you're doing a landscape, it's good to note that the things that are in the foreground are much brighter and saturated and more detailed. The things that go back into space are more muted and less detailed. So that will give you depth, and that's what's pretty important in painting when you're doing a landscape. Landscapes have never been my biggest forte, but I thought we would do one together here and see how it came out. I am going to start with the mountains. And if you notice, it looks like there's some fog in here, which helps with the depth. But again, I actually am going to start with my darks, looking at this. And I'm going to start with some of my darks in the trees and also in the mountains. Okay, so I'm going to mix up some blue. I'm going to add a little yellow to get some green for this dark green in the trees. And I'm going to mix up quite a bit. And just to mute that green down a little, I'm going to put a little red in it, because as you remember from our mixing, it is the complementary color across from the color wheel, and it's going to give you, when you mix it with the opposite color, it takes some of the color away. And if you remember, if you mix 50-50 or approximately, you're going to get gray. So I'm just going to mix a little more. I need more than this. And I want to use a smaller brush for some of this. And again, I'm using watercolor paper. I haven't gone to canvas yet, though we can soon. Anytime you want, you can use your canvas. This is a hill of trees, kind of a dark trees in front of the mountains. And I'm looking at all those trees together and looking at it as one big shape instead of all individual trees. That will really help you with your landscapes. Now I also have kind of a group over here. There goes Bogey again. Whenever I start doing this. Okay. Now, along here, this is kind of the edge of this little wash of it's not really a river, it's like a creek or something. And I'm gonna put some of the darker colors down there, actually underneath some of the trees that are there. So this will be kind of the shadow area. Then we have some kind of dark trees in here that are more in the foreground. And I'm just kind of putting in the shape at this point. I think that's what's important with a landscape. And then this is underneath these trees, little gathering of bushes actually. And I'll add some probably other colors to this. Okay, and there's a little bit back here, but it's more muted. Okay. And now I'm going to work with the mountains in the background. And to me, they look a little more blue-purple. And in some places, they even have a little bit more red. And they have a little bit more blue. So I'm going to go with the darkest that I think is there. And again, I don't use much black. I try to really use my darkest color. I might add a little black to it, but in this case, I'm not. So I'm looking at that whole mountain as one big shape at this point. And it's in front of the other mountains. And this does not have to be perfectly flat in how you're painting it, because we are going to go over it, because I see some lights and some darks. Actually, this will be the darkest, but I see some lights and some muted colors within this dark purple that I've put in. See how muted this green is? And when you look at this picture, you'll see there's a lot of different greens here. And they're really, I mean, this one here in here probably looks the most vibrant, so more right out of the tube. But these, you know, in here have a lot of blue. This has some yellow and so forth. So you don't want to make all your greens the same. And this is a really good exercise to help you do that. So I'm just going to add some dark in here because I want more of a contrast. Okay, that's good. Okay, so when I start to put this down, and shadow part of some of these trees. Again, as much as you can try to look at it from looking at it from a big mass rather than from small, it will help. Okay, and over here, I have some more green. Now I'm going to mix my next green. And this green is a little bit more in the foreground. Let's just put the sky in, just the base color. So as I'm mixing my colors for my mountains, I will have the color of the sky in there to be able to contrast it to. I'm going to start with this color. I'm going to get near the bottom of the mountain. It gets very light. Or the riverbed color that comes in here. There really isn't any water in there, so it's Now in here I have a lot of green, yellow green, really mostly yellow, and it actually has a little bit of mustard, so that would be adding some red. Mustard yellow has a little bit of orange in it, which means then you're adding red to your yellow, making orange, and then adding a little more yellow to make it very much a yellow orange. I'm going to need a little more yellow. So right now we have a lot of cool colors, very cool palette of colors. I'm going to start bringing some warm colors in, which will be kind of light mustard color. I'm going to put some brighter greens in here before I go with that mustard yellow. So start to put some of this in. This is actually going to be in some of the tops of the trees too, but let's just add this. Kind of mix it into some of our darker greens. And over here too, got places where it goes. Okay. Just gonna put And remember, when you're doing the foreground, there is a lot more detail. So I'm kind of putting some of this underbrush here. So it brings this forward, and we're going to make that go back. I don't have as much depth as I would like yet, but we'll get there. Okay. Now, I think my mountains are too dark. They aren't going back as much as I want them to into the background. I want them to really look like I have depth. Okay, and then I'm going to kind of do the sky here. Get my white and start putting some of that in. There's some clouds here over this mountain. Really just adding white at this point. Just kind of blending it in with the blue. This and this has a cloud coming in. Clouds are usually pretty soft, so it actually have some kind of thicker areas, and that's usually underneath the cloud, so it's almost the same as an object. Now I'm going to put a little color into those clouds because I want it to have a little bit of
sunset feel. And then I'm going to put some of that color into the mountains as well. I'm just going to put a little red paint into some of these. Bogey, Bogey, stop. Okay, so I'm just working on my clouds here. Okay, and then I'm gonna start working on the cloud over here. White. So what I'll do is all my blue, so I can put some blue back in here. And I want to make sure that my sky touches. Make sure my sky touches my mountains.
Landscape. There's a landscape. So again, using big shapes, only using our 3 basic colors to do all of our mixing of our greens. And you don't see very many fully saturated greens like you would see right out of the tube. And trying to create the depth. And there it is. So I hope that helped, and I will see you next week. Thank you for participating in the Council on Aging Southern California art class. Also, a few questions to ask yourself as you're doing art projects. What were you feeling as you were creating this art piece? What does the color, shape, picture mean to you? What thoughts come to mind as you were creating art? We have supportive resources in the links below and encourage you to explore them. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask by sending us a message or leaving a comment in the chat.